great day. I'm going to be reviewing Real Housewives of the Potomac, and I'm going to be doing both episodes 7 and 8. I'm going to start with episode 7 and a quick assessment of what I think is going on in this show. I think it's bad casting, and I think the people who cast for Real Housewives of Potomac are putting such a mixture of people into this show that they are not meant to get along, and they have certain problems that they just can't seem to surmount and get to a better ending. So it's just bad casting. Now I'm going to start with Charisse. I think she is a good addition. She was in the show initially. She knew the girls initially, so they had lives based on friendship. They went to the same high school. She went to the same high school as Robin and Giselle, and so she knew some of the girls earlier, and she got along with them, basically without the show. So she should be a good addition. She's also good because she shows one side of being a housewife. She's a housewife who is now divorced. Well, 50% or more of the women, especially black women, will end up divorced from their husband. So she is a great representation of a woman who was married, had children, and ended up divorced, and she didn't get the kind of financial settlement that women would like to get. And often that happens to black women. They don't get a great financial settlement with a divorce. So Charisse is perfect as a picture of a black housewife. She used to live in the Potomac. She moved out of the big house, which she didn't need. She was living basically by herself, and she didn't need all those rooms. And with the lower settlement, it would have been very hard to keep up all the gardening and all the house maintenance and so forth, fixing plumbing, fixing roofs and all that. So she moved into a townhouse. Now, townhouses are great, and they can be very expensive, just like a house. So a townhouse doesn't have to be cheap. It doesn't have to be horrible. I used to live in a townhouse, and I loved it. It's smaller to maintain, and you don't have to do any gardening, and your recreational area is maintained by the homeowners association fees. So it's much easier for a single woman in a townhouse, and then you get the upstairs and downstairs, and you get some automatic neighbors that are easy to associate with because you're in a townhouse. So a townhouse could be actually perfect housing for a single woman, whether she's divorced or just plain old single. So I think she is a good addition. The only thing about Charisse is these women are very, very conscious about their bodies, and I think she's going to have to put a little bit of effort. She doesn't have to become slim, but she just has to look like she's attempting to fit in photogenically with the other ladies. But I think otherwise she's doing great, and she gets along with the ladies, and she has a history. Now, the other person I'm going to talk about is Candiace. Well, she really has nothing to do with these ladies. She has nothing in common with them. She doesn't like the ladies. She has a very sharp tongue. She can be very cutting, and I don't think she's a good addition to this show. Her main interest is her music career, which is totally out of line with the show. Doesn't fit in with the show at all. And for me, it's kind of boring. I really don't want to hear about her singing job. I don't think she's a good fit, and I think Candiace could probably leave the show. The other person that I think could leave the show is Wendy. Wendy is a nice person. She didn't fit. And so because she didn't fit, initially she had to go get surgery. So she went and got her breasts done, and she went her stomach done, and she got her butt done. And who knows what else she's going to get done surgically to try to fit. Okay, but that doesn't work either. So then Wendy keeps telling people she has a number of degrees. And the other girls are not going to ever go back to school to try to keep up with degrees. So that's always going to be a dividing line for Wendy, because Wendy feels the fact that she has degrees and an education, that's higher education, makes her better, or the boss, or the intelligent one, or however she wants to put it. And so she feels above all the other people. That's never going to change. So Wendy is not going to fit in. Some people can have degrees and fit in with people who don't have degrees. Some people have degrees and can't fit in with people who don't have degrees. Wendy is just one of those people who will never fit in with this group. And I think she has an inferiority complex that makes her a little bit more cutting. She also, like Candiace, has a very cutting tongue. And Wendy says she doesn't like violence, but if you have a very cutting way of speaking and attacking people verbally, you can drive people to violence. So if you are that sort of harsh speaking person, you can expect to bring violence into your life. And you can't blame the other person just because you were the one speaking the harsh words. I often forget that Candiace is also a student. She is still going for her MBA at Howard University. Now in this episode 8, she comes in with her Howard girl sweatshirt on. And then I was reminded, Candiace is also a student still. And so she has a lot on her plate. We don't even get involved with her MBA degree and how that's going. So I think Candiace probably is not right for this show. She has stuff to do, and she needs to take care of it. Wendy, again, she has the cutting tongue like Candiace. She doesn't fit in well, and she always brings out her job and her education when she wants to cut down the other girls. Now, Wendy needs to stop acting like she's the very first black person to ever work at Johns Hopkins. She needs to stop acting like she's the very first Nigerian to work at Johns Hopkins. She needs to stop thinking that she's the very first female black to work at Johns Hopkins. She needs to stop thinking she's the first black female professor to ever work at Johns Hopkins. There have been Wendy's for decades at Johns Hopkins. She is not the first, and she needs to get over herself. Just do her job and don't carry her work home with her, and quit trying to use her job to throw a net over all the other cast members. So the next person is Mia. Now, Mia and Wendy both came in relatively recently, and both of them came in strong. Now, usually in any group, when you're the new cast member, you come in a little bit humble. You come in a little bit meeting the people, trying to fit in, trying to learn about the people, and letting them learn about you. Now, when Mia made her appearance, the girls were shocked because Mia looked so nice, and then they were very attacking, and they attacked her about her age and her husband, and were very intrusive, and I didn't think that was a very good way to start any kind of relationship. Wendy has seemed to focus on Mia's feet, as has Candiace, and they are always talking about the size of Mia's feet. Well, Mia's feet will always be the same size, so if you can't get over the size of Mia's feet and her shoe size, that is going to be a problem. You cannot keep trying to talk about somebody because of their body build. And Wendy, who is supposed to be working with students, is supposed to be more accepting of people and not cutting people down because of their uh, body build, their weight, their deformities. And then Wendy has shown also a bias against homosexuals in that she's always saying things about um, Ashley and Mia, inferring that they are homosexuals in a negative fashion and lashing out at them. And I think as a teacher, as a person working with students, as a person at Johns Hopkins, that is a no-no. You can't do that. And it doesn't mean she has to have that in her life, but she just can't be so cutting and negative about people who have different lifestyles than hers. And I don't like that about her. So Mia has a very authoritative attitude. Now, in episode 7, Mia came out different, and I felt that at the very start of that episode, something was going to happen because Mia wasn't the same Mia that I had seen in the prior episodes. I've always liked Mia, and I've always defended Mia, and I was really glad that Mia came with her friend Jacqueline in episode 7 because I thought Jacqueline would support Mia, and Mia would have a better chance of having somebody to talk to and not getting into an argument. But Mia seems to hold Jacqueline in some awkward position where Jacqueline is a friend at some times, and at other times Mia seems to be bashing her. Now in episode 7, it starts out with Mia bashing Jacqueline. They're staying in a room together, and she's complaining that Jacqueline is borrowing stuff from her, and she says the limit was Jacqueline wanted to borrow her deodorant. Well, I didn't see anything wrong with that. There are plenty of ways to share your deodorant without passing germs, and so I was wondering why suddenly Mia would be complaining about Jacqueline when Jacqueline is supposed to be Mia's good friend, who she brought in the show specifically as part of a support system. So I knew from that point something was going on and that this was going to be a problem. But I wasn't sure exactly from the beginning what the problem was going to be. And it just exploded from there. Now, the other thing that Wendy does with Mia that I don't like is that in episode 8, and S7 and 8, Wendy is talking about Mia's crater face. I think Candiace does it too. No. You cannot yell at Mia that she has a crater face. Mia had a accident when she was a young child. She was left at home alone. She was near the kitchen stove. She dumped something on her face. I think it was water, but it could have been oil, and she suffered severe burns. So these are childhood burns she will never get over, and I think having a teacher calling you crater face is unbelievable. I just can't understand why somebody would do that. So I understand why Mia would lash out with somebody calling her crater face. It's no different than calling her, I don't know, think of a negative term you would use for somebody who only has one leg, or somebody who's lost an arm, or somebody who's blind, or somebody who has a speech defect. I mean, you just can't yell out negative things, lashing out at people who have problems, health problems. Johns Hopkins is a hospital. Hospital. Say that. Hospital. They have lots of people that have health, physical problems, mental problems, and all kinds of things. And I don't think that Wendy's attitude toward Mia and her deformity is acceptable in any way. The other thing I liked, well, I told you I liked Charisse because she gets along with Robin and Giselle. And Robin and Giselle are really the only people who laugh and smile in this show. Everybody else is very stern looking and argumentative and unhappy. So I like Robin and Giselle because they bring some joy. You may not like why they're laughing, but they have their little giggles. They're laughing, they're smiling, which I like. And so I like Robin and Giselle together. And then they have a connection with Karen. Karen says she likes Giselle, and Giselle likes Karen. And so I like that they have that attachment together. So those three, I think, should stay. Of course, Jacqueline is there just for Mia, so she should go. And then we have Ashley. Now, when Ashley first came onto the show years ago, I didn't think Ashley would fit because Ashley was so young and her lifestyle was so different. But Ashley has meshed and she has become a pot stirrer. She can bring up problems and try to agitate the group, which I guess you need when you're going to have one of these soap opera things. The other thing about Mia that I wanted to mention, I was questioning as to whether Mia would fit into the group because she has a history of being a sex worker. And I said, well, most people who are not used to being around sex workers would not pick a friend to be close to who has a history of sex work. And then, her story as to how she and her husband, G, got together. However, when I thought about it more, then I said, a lot of women, especially minority women, if they're not educated, if they don't have ways to really get a job, a lot of them do go into sex work. And so Mia might be a good representation of a person who's didn't go for a formal education and who got into sex work to pay her bills and then ended up marrying somebody with some money and started a business and who's doing financially pretty good. So I thought for that reason, I think Mia does have a representation in the Black community, and I think for that reason, she is good on the show. So the people I would keep are Robin, Giselle, Karen, Charisse, Mia, and Ashley. And I would get rid of Candiace and Wendy for the reasons I stated. Now, some people try to say, well, this is racism. You're only getting rid of darker skinned people and the lighter ones are staying. But it has absolutely nothing to do with race. It's just that Wendy has chosen, by the way she acts about her education and the way she acts about her job and the way she acts about throwing the homosexual slurs about everybody around and the childhood deformities of Mia and so forth. I just think that's intolerable. Candiace, I think I like her husband. I think her husband is nice. He's a cook. She has actually a very nice lifestyle outside of this show. And her husband is doing private cooking lessons, private dinners, and she also acts as a host, and then they sell wine. I mean, it really could be a very wonderful lifestyle, and then she can run off singing and then do her MBA stuff. So she really doesn't need the show, and I don't think she really fits on the show. And I don't like her. She doesn't like anybody on the show, so I don't even know why she's there in the first place. So I would cut out Candiace and Wendy for personality reasons. They just don't fit.
Please like and subscribe.